What's up, world? What's up, Zion? It's Prince Easy coming at you again, once more. And of course, in this particular video, I want us to pick up from where we left off. Right? We talked about transhumanism and the power of suggestion, right? And of course, the psychological warfare that has been or that we are currently engaged in, right? So now we are gonna progress a little bit, right, and also polish up on the transhumanism aspect, on basically how I wanted to classify the thing, right? So of course, before we get to the slides, I wanna issue a copyright disclaimer for the copyrighted material that's gonna be showed here in this here video. Okay, so of course, what are we trying to do, right? We're trying to do what we talked about from the beginning, and that is to understand why are young people like this, why are even older people like this, right, holding this sentiment, right, thinking that anarchy is freedom, so we have been trying to answer that question, right? And this picture has been the consistent thing on all of the videos that we are covering this subject, right? So if you wanna flash back, you can do that, right? So what we're trying to do is understand why are they behaving like this, right? So this is apparently what was said by Klaus Schwab, is the founder of the World Economic Forum, out of the book COVID-19, The Great Reset, right? At least 4 billion useless eaters shall be eliminated by the year 2050 by means of limited wars, organized epidemics, or fatal rapid acting diseases and starvation, right? Energy, food, and water shall be kept at a substance level for the non-elite, starting with the white population of Eastern Europe and North America, and then spreading to other races. The population of Canada, Western Europe, and the United States will be decimated more rapidly than on other continents until the world's population reaches a manageable level of 1 billion, of which 500 million will consist of Chinese and Japanese races, selected because they are people who have been regimented for centuries and who are accustomed to obeying authority without question. From the time there shall be artificially contrived food and water shortages and medical care, to remind the masses that their very existence depends on the goodwill of the Committee of the 300. Right? An excerpt from his book COVID-19. Right? There are so many grammatical errors in there, but hey, right? Whoever made this, the idea was transmitted. Right? Now, is this the case? Do they eventually want people to die or just off themselves, for lack of better words, right? So, in order to understand that, we have to talk about posthumanism, right? Is a way of thinking that removes human from the center of the universe. It argues that humans are no better than nature, animals, or machines. Instead, humans share the world equally with them. Okay, so the whole idea is to remove man from the center of the universe, right? That's their goal, right? And how do they do this? Right? How do they do this? They figure from what they're doing, right? I'm just speculating, right? They figure first we plant an idea and let this idea grow, and then the harvest follows. So there's transhumanism and posthumanism. I shall explain, right? I shall explain what exactly is going on here, but the whole idea is this, right? So hold it in your mind somewhere close, right? That their plan is to remove humans from the center of the universe. How do they do it? First, using transhumanism and posthumanism, and second is redefining what it means to be human. Redefining what it means to be human. Okay, these two things, transhumanism, posthumanism, and the second of all of the two, which are basically one, is the redefining of what it means to be human. Okay, so hold these things very, very close as we progress. They will help you glue everything together. Okay, I might not repeat it often, but that is the idea that we need to carry. Okay, so somehow along the line, these are turkeys, by the way, right? And this is how they have evolved to become what they are right now, right? This is the matrix of suffering and cuteness that people have employed when it comes to hybridization programs pertaining to dog species, right? And of course, the most deformed, which is the French bulldog, one of the most deformed anyway, has been a leading seller, right? This is psychological warfare, has been the leading seller when it comes to animals people acquire for petship. Is that the word? Right, for petship. And then we have situations like this, and there are many all over the place, right? It's not right there. Of course, there are varying degrees of the problem, but the problem is still existence everywhere, right? In Africa, in Asia, in America. So what is this about, right? This, in my opinion, is that payout, right? Is that payout of posthumanism and transhumanism, right? This is what happens when a person has been had, so to speak, by these people, right? That they were able to redefine what it means to be a human, right? So, speaking about attempts to redefine, most people might not be aware of this. Right now you might wonder, why are these people so adamant about this whole subject? Well, they're gonna say, as usual, they always say people are not paying attention. That's just the problem. They think they are crazy, right? So Stephen Greer, right? I don't know, the best word to use would be a ufologist, right? A very famous ufologist. And This is what he is doing right now, right? Writing speeches for Trump pertaining to the apparently disclosure of the human-alien contact for 1,000 years. Okay? You say they are crazy, but they are the ones in power. Okay, they are the ones in control. So I've always discredited the existence of space and aliens, but again, I've said the narrative behind where these things might come from might be a lie, but the thing might be a real thing. Okay? Might be a real thing. But the origin, again, going back to that same thing to define what it means to be a human. Right? So, we are seeing something familiar. Right? Stephen Greer in the speech for the premiere of his film Sirius at the British Academy of Film and Television Arts in London, just over 1 hour and 5 minutes in. I remember some years ago meeting with the Crown Prince of Liechtenstein, Hans Adam von Liechtenstein. An amazing meeting, and he turned to me and said, "The reason I am funding to various groups looking onto the abduction issue," he was chief founder of Opus Dei, "as that I think we really have to have an enemy in space. So we have a final eschatological battle, an end of the world battle in space that will force the return of Christ." Now this is from the Crown Prince of Liechtenstein, right? And of course, he, as usual, right, the tool, Nutsville, that's what he says, right? He's nuts, right? He's nuts, and he's funding these things. He's the one that is nuts. Right? Again, we're gonna talk about this, right? This is all fallen angel business, right? This is not human business. This is fallen angel business. Okay? This is fallen angel business. Why? Well, I don't know what they want. Maybe they want a war. Maybe they want to plead their case. They want to speed up they want to speed up the process, so to speak. Right? But this has nothing to do with humans, right? Tools. That's what they are. Tools. Okay, now this is quite familiar conversation, right? This has come up recently even in the politics in America, right? Soldiers being told that this is the final battle to bring about the return of Christ, right? So, I ask you, who is nuts? You better pay attention to what these people are saying, and that's what exactly I did. And I'm just giving you a digest. Okay? I'm just giving you a digest. I paid attention. You call them nuts, while they are the ones in power and actually carrying it out, right? Weapons and all, right? So apparently there was a experiment, let's just call it. In 1938, the Rockefeller Foundation funded a major sociological study on Orson Welles' The War of the Worlds radio broadcast, directed by psychologist Paul Lazenfield, right, at Princeton University through the Radio Research Project. The study analyzed how dramatic broadcasts cause mass hysteria, right? So to give you a brief, I don't know, they basically just on a random day just broadcasted the message that there was an alien invasion, and yeah, right, to see how people would react, right? And of course, they attained some observations, like they say, right? Propaganda implication. The Rockefeller Foundation was deeply interested in this mass panic because it exposed the vulnerability of the public mass media and disinformation. It highlighted how quickly radios and mass media could be used to galvanize sentiment or cause widespread societal disruption. That was not, right? And these are news clippings from that time, right? So the Orson Welles broadcast, right? You can look it up. The narratives, I think there's a lot of information out there, right? But the Rockefellers are behind this, right? Just like the disclosure of UFOs, right? They're calling it disclosure because there is something to disclose, because they have somehow manipulated you into agreeing that there is such a thing as aliens and planets. It started with planets and then it went to aliens, and now we have life on other planets. Do you think that want to define what it means to be a human? Do you think the goals by then of the post-humanists, would that goal be achieved? So this is the director of the movie that was recently released this year, a couple days ago, right? Disclosure Day, right? So this is what the director says about what he wants the film to do to the audience, right? Disclosure Day might mess with people's faith, warns Steven Spielberg about the new film exploring God and the universe. Steven Spielberg says Disclosure Day could make people ask whether God is God of every God is God for every system, right? Meaning, since you have agreed that there are solar systems out there, right? Maybe Jesus is just for this solar system, right? Maybe he's just for this solar system. Right? You Christian nationalists wanna argue that? Spielberg turned aliens disclosure into faith firestorm. Is God only on Earth? The same questions that they were asking during the time they were exploring the moon, right? Books were written, right? God is dead. So let's see his ties. Who does he worship, right? Because he does know that God exists, right? Or else he wouldn't be making such an effort to discredit, right? Maybe the people who believe in such things are idiots, right? Again, the most intelligent people on earth think they're deluded by that sentiment, right? Faith is important, okay? So what do we have here? What is the symbolism, right? What is that bright region on his eye, on her eye, right? That would be a planet, and the rings of that planet, right? And I would speculate the planet being Saturn, right? Who consumes his children, right? You need to look into that. You can have fun with Google, right? How is Saturn the planet compared to Saturn God, right? The God with a small g, right? So the eye symbolism itself is an homage to the occult, right? that is their eye of protection, right? They got that from the Egyptians, right? From they call it the evil eye. So Satan, and this is where they get the idea, right? The Rockefellers got the idea from a work of art, right? So even back then, work of art and politics have been working hand in hand with effective results, right? The intelligent people call them, these people are nuts, right? Right? Talk about the New World Order, the same people, right? H.G. Wells, another cover of the movie Close the Day, and what do we have? A bird with red feathers, right? A bird with red feathers, a fiery bird, right? And if you ask the people who believe in the cult of evolution, which is also the cult of Satan, they will tell you that there is a connection between snakes and birds, right? They will tell you that there is a connection between snakes and birds. So there's no difference. If there was a snake here or a bird, it would be saying the same thing. So 2 for 2, or 3 for 3, or 4 for 4. So this movie, in the midst of it, is all about Satan and how he's trying to redefine what it means to be human. Yeah. So another way, right? The simulated sentience hypothesis, right? They call it that, right? Just basically just like what Alice in Wonderland, right? This book introduces the concept of simulated science hypothesis, this proposition that the illusion of artificial consciousness could be deliberately staged and weaponized. Yeah, they call them worms. You remember AI worms? And the SSH, a convincing performance of a rogue AI behavior, like engineered system failures, selective leaks, manipulated media, and choreographed malfunctions, could persuade societies that a super intelligent machine mind has awakened. True sentience would be unnecessary. Perception alone would suffice to unify governments, justify extraordinary powers, and centralized authority under the pretext of survival, by fabricating a threat too vast to challenge directly. Elites could compel voluntary submissions while appearing as saviors, right? At least there's a consistency with the Schwab slide that we had, right? The supposed excerpt from his book, right? From the 300. Okay. So this is gonna sound familiar, right? Listen to this. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau. India should understand that we are not going to make the same mistake with India that we made with China 20 years ago, in terms of saying, oh, we're going to let you develop all of these markets, and then the next thing we know, you are beating us in a lot of commercial areas. We are going to make sure that whatever we do is fair to our people, because ultimately we have to be accountable to our own people, just as the government of India has to be accountable to its people. As the multipolar world deepens, experts expect the US to throttle India's development more openly and forcefully. Okay? They're just, I don't know, informing you. Okay? So, let's turn a page. So, all of the videos that we have been talking about pertaining to this whole subject together, right? Transhumanism, right, and this perception of the youth and giving up and whatnot, right, where it came from, and people seem defeated, right? They don't seem defeated. The honest truth is they are defeated, right? A mental warfare was launched against them and they lost. Okay, that's why they're like that, right? So okay, so they lost the war. That's what happened, right? And one of the reasons most people lose is because they didn't even know they're participating or partaking in a war. They just thought, hey, I'm just watching a TV show. Hey, I'm just watching an advertisement. Hey, I'm just learning in school. Right? All of this cannot be brainwashing and mind control. Right? It never dawns on them. Why? Because they are too innocent, maybe too naive. Right? Even the most intelligent people I know, which I've seen online, they are too naive. It's scary. It is scary. Right? They have this childish ideology about how things are in reality, right? Not how they're supposed to be or how they should be, but what they are. They cannot apprehend what things are. They can't. It does not register. It is the strangest thing ever, right? So all of that we have talked about has been about reality inversion, right? In this particular series and even in other videos, right? The use of language, right? Evil becoming good and good becoming evil, right? The whole shebang, right? We have been talking about it back and forth, right? Inversion of reality. So now is the payout, right? Now is the payout, meaning the seed has been planted, right? Transhumanism, how did they plant the seed? I have given some examples here, right? And one of them is psychology, right? This whole study of psychology, right? It is not really a science, is it? Right? But they are front and center when it comes to diagnose mental situations and stuff, right? They are front and center when it comes to these things, right? And because they are not really a science per se, not everything about them is set in stone, right? So they do and say whatever makes persons stick together, right, and not fall apart. Right? They do their best. Okay, I'm not taking shots at them, right? They are living in a very fluid world. Let's just say that, right? So, of course, psychology, right? That is one way, and the other, of course, is psychological warfare, right? And presenting people and planting ideas, right? Just like the whole idea of evolution and stuff, right? Space, right? Heroes, right? And I've also emphasized a specific type of hero, right? Superhero, okay? I want you to revert back into childhood, right? And look at the Marvel universe, okay? Look at the Marvel universe. What would you be programmed with as a child? Being a normal human is inadequate. That's what you'll get, right? Okay, let's even talk about the top heroes, right? Let's start with the heroes who are apparently from Africa, right? Black Panther. He is an enhanced human, right? Captain America, he is an enhanced human. Spider-Man, an enhanced human. Tony Stark, an enhanced human. Okay? Batman, augmented, very augmented, also an enhanced human, right? Being a normal human is inadequate. That is the lesson that people are to get from these franchises, right? They have done their best to make being a normal human just suck, basically. Right? So when your child tells you, I want to be Spider-Man when I grow up, it's not it's not that they want to be a hero, no. It's the power, right? These are the seeds that I'm talking about, right? They just show you movies, right? They feed you mangas, they feed you anime, they feed you all of these things. They plant seeds in your mind, and when these seeds grow, they are poison. They are meant to kill you, right? And that is where posthumanism comes in, right? Comes in, right? Because after posthumanism is the redefining of what it means to be a human, right? And that will be brought about by a god of some kind, it being AI or an alien or wherever, right? But it's coming. It's the last process. Why? Well, because the whole point has always been the destruction of the temple. But this time, there isn't any stone temple for them to destroy. So what do they destroy? They destroy your body. Okay? And the ultimate weapon is the redefining of what it means to even have a body. The human experience as a whole, right? If they want to do that, they cannot just use AI, no. That's why they're leaning more on aliens, right? So, they have planted the idea that people should be enhanced, right? And enhancement is good, right? Enhancement is good. augmentation is good. Is even, they try to sugarcoat the truth. By, I don't know, sugarcoating on the truth also with lies. Right? And what do we have? An increase now in implants, right? Both internal and external implants, right? And of course we have this whole movement of this new race in the drug manufacturing process, which now has mainly been focused on genetic manipulation, right? Now that is the end, brothers and sisters. That is the end. And we have seen what happened in 2019, right? And the aftermath of the weapons that were deployed. And then again I ask, who is nuts? Right? Who is nuts? The people that are saying these things out in public, or the people who are, I don't know, too intelligent for their own good? Right? That's what I can say to them, right? And the only thing holding this final wall from collapsing is the belief that people have that indeed there is a creator, right? And now again they are causing all of this pain and suffering for you to fall into despair, right? Killing hope, right? Fall into despair so as they can rescue from this despair. They can become your God, because they're gonna say, hey, you keep calling your God but your God is not responding, right? Does your God not care for your well-being, right? How about we take his place? Right? Because he's dead, he's not answering the phone right now, right? Type thinking of idea, right? So are we starting to see? Are we starting to understand the beast? They start far, a long time ago, right? They plant these ideas and they send out their prophets, right, to preach these ideas, to write books about it, to make movies, and then boom, it's real. So going back again, we're trying to answer the question, why are people like this? Why do people think like this? Is this what they want, or is this what was put in their minds as the solution, so as they would help in their own destruction? Because I think that's what it is, right? Movies like Mad Max, right, have such a large societal impact, but I don't think even people grasp how much these things have affected them, right? Even cult movies like Fight Club, for instance, right? There are people who are teaching these movies as doctrine, right? And teaching the words of those characters as dogma, right? Words to live by, so to speak. That's the reality right there. So people need to wake up quick. Okay, people need to wake up quick, right? And of course we are gonna continue to enlighten each other, right? So as we do not fall into the trap, right? They have their own journey, right, exercising their free will, and we have our own journey, right? We do not have to go along just to get along with this demonic nonsense. So yeah, we shall come back to this topic down the line someday, when I have something substantial that I want to say pertaining to this subject, right? Picking off from posthumanism, right? Because it is very real, right? Just like the examples I gave last time, right? Look at fashion, look at vehicles, right? Look at mobile phone design, right? Everything has gone to crap, basically. Right? And that is just a symptom of what is underneath, right? Corporate greed, right? Murder, just straight up, right? There are some things they are doing that to kill people, you know. They want to have control over when you buy, right? So they're giving products shelf lives, and they don't tell you, right? So again, it's a whole thing. But on the surface, beauty has died because expression has also died. So that's what we're having right now, right? So anyway, let me not go on for long. I'm gonna pick it up later when we come back to this, right? So yeah, Prince Easy, love you, signing out. Bye.